I was sitting at my kitchen table at 11:30 on a Tuesday night, staring at a credit card statement that had my name on it, but not a single charge I'd made. The apartment was quiet except for the hum of the refrigerator and the distant sound of someone's TV 2 floors up. I remember thinking, this can't be right. I remember thinking, there must be a mistake. And then I read the line items again. A furniture store in Scottsdale, a car rental in Phoenix, a sporting goods purchase, a weekend stay at a Marriott, and I knew exactly who had done this, and I knew exactly how long it had been going on. I set the statement down on the table very carefully, the way you set something down when your hands are shaking and you don't want to drop it. Let me back up. I'm 31 years old. I work as a project manager for a mid-sized construction firm in Denver. I got the job through grinding 2 years as a junior coordinator, then a lateral move to a bigger company, then another, until I was managing timelines and budgets for commercial builds worth several $1 million each. I'm not rich, but I'm stable. I own my car outright, I have a solid emergency fund, I max out my 401k every year, and I've never once carried a balance on my credit card longer than the grace period. I grew up in a house where none of that was normal. My parents divorced when I was 9. My mother raised me and my younger brother in a 2-bedroom apartment in Tucson on a receptionist salary and whatever child support my father remembered to send, which was not always. My mother is a good woman who worked hard and loved us genuinely, but money was always a crisis in our house. Not a background hum, a full alarm. There were months when she'd sit at that same kitchen table I'd grown up at, sorting through envelopes, and I'd watch her face do the math she didn't want to say out loud. I think that's why I am the way I am now. Why I track every dollar. Why I built the life I built. Because I watched what happened when you didn't. My brother learned something different from the same childhood. His name is Damon. He's 28. He's charming in a way that makes people want to give him things. He smiles wide and talks fast and makes you feel like you're the only person in the room, and then somehow you've agreed to something you didn't quite intend to agree to. He's had 7 jobs in 5 years, not because he gets fired, or not always, but because something better always seems to be starting next month. A business idea, a partnership with a friend, a new city with more opportunity. He's been engaged twice and neither of them went anywhere. My mother has always made excuses for him. That's just Damon. You know how he is? He just needs a little more time. I've helped him. I want to be honest about that, because this story isn't one where I never gave anything. I lent him $3,000 3 years ago when he said he needed to make rent or lose his apartment. He paid back $500 and went quiet on the rest. I helped him buy a used truck when his car died, co-signed on the loan. He made payments for 4 months and then stopped, and I ate the rest to protect my credit. When my mother's furnace died 2 winters ago, I paid the $2,800 to replace it, because Damon said he would split it with me and then didn't have it, and I wasn't going to let her freeze. I never said anything. Every time I thought about bringing it up, I'd hear her voice in my head. That's just how he is, you know how he is, and I'd let it go. My mother's 60th birthday was in late March. She mentioned it in January, casually, the way she mentions things she's hoping someone will pick up on. A big dinner, she said, all of us together. She hadn't had a real celebration in years. I said I'd plan it. I meant a nice restaurant, maybe 12 people. Her 2 sisters and their husbands, a few of her close friends, me, Damon, his girlfriend at the time. I started looking at places in Tucson with private dining rooms, around $60 to $80 a head, something that felt special without being reckless. Then Damon got involved. He called me in February and said he had a better idea. His buddy managed a steakhouse that had just opened downtown, very upscale, gorgeous space. He could get us a reservation for the private room, no problem. It would be perfect for Mom. I asked how much. He said he wasn't sure exactly, but probably around the same as what I was looking at. He'd get the details. He never sent me the details. I asked twice more, and he said it was handled. He was taking care of it. I didn't need to worry. 3 weeks before the dinner, I finally pinned him down. I called him on a Saturday and told him I needed the restaurant name, the contact, the estimate, all of it, because I needed to send invitations. He gave me the restaurant name. I looked it up. The prix-fixe dinner in the private room was $185 per person, minimum of 20 guests, gratuity not included. I did the math. 20 guests at $185 was $3,700. Add 22% gratuity and we were at $4,514. Add tax, add whatever we ordered for drinks, and this was easily a $5,000 dinner. I called Damon back immediately. He told me not to stress. It was Mon's 60th. You only turn 60 once. I told him that was a lot of money and I needed to know what the plan was for splitting it because I was not paying for this alone. He said, of course, everyone was going to chip in. He talked to the aunts. They were on board. It would all work out. I should have pushed harder. I know that now. But there's something about the way Damon talks, that forward momentum, that certainty, that makes you feel like the anxious one if you keep asking. Like you're the problem for not just trusting that it'll work out. I spent 2 weeks coordinating RSVPs, sending a group text, arranging a small slideshow of photos of my mother from over the years. I ordered flowers. I bought her a piece of jewelry I knew she'd love, a simple gold bracelet with a small diamond that she pointed at once in a store window and never bought for herself. I had it engraved. The night of the dinner, I got to the restaurant before anyone else. I wanted to check on the setup, make sure the flowers had been delivered, confirm the table was right. The maitre d' showed me to the room. It was beautiful, long table, low lighting, elegant without being cold. And then she handed me a folder. Just wanted to go over a few things for tonight, she said. The folder had the reservation confirmation, 24 guests, pre-selected menu, a line at the bottom that said, deposit of $1,000 paid. Remaining balance due at end of evening. I asked who had put down the deposit. She said my brother had come in 2 weeks ago and paid it in cash. I asked how the remaining balance was expected to be handled. Who had arranged that? She said the reservation was in my name. I stood there for a moment. I remember the sound of glasses being set out behind me, the soft clink of it, very normal and quiet. I said, "Excuse me?" She pulled up the reservation on her tablet. The contact name was mine. The email address was close to mine, but not quite, 1 letter different, a variation I'd never set up. The phone number wasn't mine. Someone had made a reservation in my name at a restaurant they knew I hadn't approved, but 24 people for a bill that was going to land somewhere between $5,000 and $7,000 and had listed me as the responsible party. I asked if there was a card on file. She said no, just the deposit. I excused myself and went to the hallway and called Damon. He didn't answer. I texted him. He sent back a thumbs up. I stood in that hallway for a long moment. People were starting to arrive. I could hear voices in the lobby, my aunt's laugh, the particular energy of a family gathering that doesn't know yet that anything is wrong. And I thought about the $3,000 he never paid back, the truck loan, the furnace. I thought about the credit card statement I'd been meaning to look at more carefully, the one that had charges in cities I haven't been to. I went back to the Mahidre D and I asked her to do me a favor. I asked her to keep track of exactly what I ordered during the evening and to be ready to split it out at the end. She looked at me for a second, and I think she understood something. She nodded. I went into the room and I hugged my mother and I told her she looked beautiful and I meant it. I put the bracelet around her wrist and watched her face do something I hadn't seen it do in a long time, that complete, unguarded happiness. She held her wrist up to the light and teared up a little, and I felt all of it, and also the very hard thing underneath it. Damon arrived 20 minutes late with his girlfriend, a woman named, I found out later, he'd been seeing for 6 weeks. He came in loud and warm, kissed my mother's cheek, made the room feel like he'd just arrived at his own party. He didn't look at me when he came in. I sat through that dinner. I ate my food. I talked to my aunts about their gardens and about a trip one of them was planning to Portugal. I watched my mother laugh at the head of the table, genuinely happy, surrounded by people who loved her, and I held on to that because it was real and I didn't want to ruin it. At one point, my uncle made a toast. He said my mother had raised two incredible kids and that the dinner was proof of what family does for each other. He looked at me when he said it, smiling, and I smiled back. Damon ordered 2 bottles of wine for the table without asking anyone. He ordered a second entree he said he couldn't decide. His girlfriend ordered the lobster. When dessert came out, my mother blew out the candle on her cake, and the room clapped, and I took a photo of her face in that moment. And I have kept it. Whatever happened next, that part was real. After the cake, people started standing up. The slow dissolution of a dinner party. My aunt went to the restroom. My uncle got his coat, and I got up and went to find the maitre d'. I asked her for my itemized bill. She had it ready. 1 entree, 1 glass of wine, my share of the cake, which I'd specifically arranged to pay for separately when I ordered the flowers. My total came to $94 before tip. I left $115 on the table. I put it in the little folder. I thanked her, and then I went back to the room, kissed my mother on the cheek, told her happy birthday and that I loved her. Told her I had an early morning and needed to get going. She said, "Already?" I said yes, but that I was so glad we did this. I hugged my aunts. I shook hands with my uncle. I did not look at Damon. I got my coat and I walked out of that restaurant. I was sitting in my car in the parking garage when my phone started going. First Damon, then a number I didn't recognize. Probably his girlfriend's. Then my mother. I didn't answer any of them. I drove home. I made tea. And then I sat down at my kitchen table and pulled out that credit card statement I'd been meaning to look at more carefully, the one that had arrived the previous week and that I'd set aside because work had been busy. I read it line by line. The furniture store in Scottsdale, $847. A car rental from Enterprise in Phoenix, $312. Bass Pro Shops, $634. A Marriott in Sedona for 2 nights, $438. A restaurant charge I didn't recognize. Another one. A grocery store in a zip code that wasn't mine. 14 charges over 4 months. Total, $3,219. And then I checked my other card, the one I kept for work travel, the one I almost never used personally. I hadn't opened that statement yet. 7 more charges, $1,801. I put both statements down and I sat very still for a moment. Then I picked up my phone and I did something I'd been putting off for reasons I couldn't entirely explain to myself. I pulled my credit report. There was a store credit card opened in my name 8 months ago, a balance of $1,400. There was a personal loan inquiry from a credit union 6 months ago. I'd never applied for a personal loan. I sat with all of that in front of me for a long time. The next morning, I called my bank before I called anyone in my family. I reported the unauthorized charges on both cards, explained that I had not made them and had not authorized anyone to make them, and asked for the dispute process. The representative flagged both accounts and told me new cards would arrive within 3 to 5 business days. She also told me to file a police report, which would help the dispute process, and to contact the credit bureaus to place a fraud alert. I did all of those things that day. I did not call my mother. I did not call Damon. 3 days later, I called a lawyer, a friend of a friend who did civil litigation and had handled identity theft cases before. I laid out what I had: the credit card charges, the store account, the loan inquiry, the restaurant reservation made in my name without my consent. She listened carefully and then told me what I already suspected. This was identity theft and fraud, regardless of who had done it, regardless of family relationship. She said the law didn't make exceptions for brothers. I filed the police report that week. When the detective called me back to go over the details, he asked if I had any idea who might have had access to my personal information. I told him yes. I told him everything. Damon had been to my apartment 4 times in the last year. I kept important documents in a fireproof box in my closet, not locked, because I hadn't thought I needed to lock things in my own home. My social security card was in there, a copy of my passport, old tax returns with my full financial history on them. It wasn't hard to figure out the method. What was hard was sitting with the fact that I'd handed it to him, not because I was careless, but because I'd trusted him. My mother called me 7 times in the 4 days after the dinner. I let the calls go and sent her a text on the 4th day that said, "I love you. I'm okay. I need some time to handle something important. I'll explain when I can." She sent back, "You're scaring me. Please call me." I sent, "I will soon. I promise." On day 9, I called her. I asked her to sit down. I told her what I'd found, the charges, the accounts, the loan inquiry, the reservation made in my name. I read her the numbers. I told her I'd filed a police report and that a detective was investigating. She was quiet for a long time. Then she said, "Are you sure it was him?" I said, "Yes, I'm sure." She said, "He wouldn't do that. He loves you. He knows how hard you've worked." I said, "I know, and he did it anyway." She cried. I let her cry. I didn't try to make it easier because I couldn't make it easier, because I couldn't make it easier. I just stayed on the line. After a while, she said, "What happens now?" I told her the detective would contact Damon, that there would likely be a formal interview, that depending on what he said and what the investigation found, there could be charges, criminal charges. I told her the civil side was separate, that my lawyer was already preparing a demand letter for the amounts I could document. She said, Can't you just let him pay it back? Can't it be a family thing?" I thought about the $3,000 from 3 years ago, the truck loan, the furnace. I said he had every chance to make things right between us. He used my name instead. She didn't say anything. I said, "Mom, I love you. This isn't about you. Your birthday dinner was real, and the bracelet was real, and the bracelet was real, and they meant all of it. But I can't keep absorbing this. I have to protect myself." Another silence. And then, very quietly, she said, "I know. That was 4 months ago." Damon was interviewed by the detective in April. He admitted to the restaurant reservation, said he'd thought I'd just pay for it once I saw how happy Mom was, which tells you everything about how he thinks. He denied the credit card charges at first. The bank's fraud investigation turned up records that connected the Marriott charge to a booking under his email address, a different name, same dates. The car rental had a record that matched his driver's license number. By May, he'd retained a lawyer of his own. The civil demand letter went out the same week. My lawyer documented every charge I could prove, $5,020 across the cards. The store account paid off before it went to collections, legal fees. The demand was for full repayment. Damon's lawyer countered with a payment plan. My lawyer said that was their opening position and that we should see what the criminal process produced first. The restaurant called me 2 weeks after the dinner to let me know the remaining balance had been sorted. My aunt, it turned out, had asked what was going on when the bill came and no one could pay it, and she put $2,000 on her card and other family members had scrambled for the rest. The maitre d' told me later that there had been a very uncomfortable 20 minutes at the table after I left. My aunt called me a week after that. She didn't yell at me. She said, "I figured out what happened. I'm sorry you've been dealing with this." I said, "I'm sorry it landed on you." She said, "You did the right thing." My mother and I talk twice a week now. We don't talk about Damon much. When his name comes up, she sounds tired in the way that people sound when they've been grieving something slowly for a long time. I think she always knew on some level. I think she just hoped she was wrong. I'm not angry anymore, or I'm not only angry. What I feel most of the time now is clear. The particular clarity that comes from having finally looked at something directly instead of around the edges of it. The other night I was at my kitchen table going over the budget for a new project at work, a 6-story mixed-use building going up in the Highlands neighborhood. Decent timeline, good contractor. My phone was next to me, quiet. My tea was going cold. The apartment was exactly as still as it always is, and I thought, this is what I built. Not the job, or the apartment, or the 401k, though those too. I mean this. The ability to sit in a quiet room and not be waiting for the next thing to go wrong. to not have the low-grade dread of a person who keeps lending money they can't afford and pretending not to notice things they've already noticed. I had let things go unspoken for years because speaking them felt like cruelty. I know now that silence was the cruelty to myself. I don't know yet what happens with a criminal case. My lawyer says these things move slowly and I should be patient. The demand letter is still in negotiation. My credit report now has a fraud alert and I've added a credit freeze, which I should have done years ago, not because I was naive, but because I'd simply never imagined I'd need protection from my own brother. What I do know is this: I paid my share of my mother's birthday dinner, $94 and a $21 tip. I handed it to the maitre d' in a small folder and I walked out into the cool March night, and I did not look back. For the first time in a long time, the books were mine to keep.